Here's Archie Aitchison.
Thank you, and I will sit if you don't mind.
Not at all. Not at all.
Life is good. We're safe, and at times it's very relaxing. That's what's so great about this country. But there's a reason all of what I just said is true. Some take it for granted, others could care less. Me? I thank 'em every chance I get. This sea of white headstones can be found in most major cities in America. I look out at a view like this and can't help but think of all those men who fought through hell. Some died on foreign soil, some came home. But every one of these headstones has a story to tell, with no one to tell it. All of these stories will go unheard for the rest of time. It's quiet here, but these headstones scream a million words for those who will listen. These were my heroes growing up. They didn't wear spandex, a cape. Hell, their underwear was underneath their pants. If it wasn't for the greatest generation, we would all be speaking Japanese or German. That's why telling the stories of those we have left is so beyond important to me. We are losing these heroes too rapidly. So my mission is to sit down with as many as I can, to let these unsung heroes have their chance to be heard, before it's too late.
In Waterbury, Connecticut.
That's where I was born. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to say New Year.
In 1924, so I'm 95. But I was born on leap year, so I've only had 23 3/4 birthdays. I'm much younger than all of you. By the way, are there any World War II vets here?
I doubt it.
No? Well, they won't know if I'm telling fibs or not. I grew up during the Depression. Was not a good time, well, starting in 1929. But my dad was a good tool maker, machinist, had some work, and we got through those Depression years. They were bad. You know, they talk about recessions now, they don't compare. However, when Roosevelt came in, they got a New Deal, things gradually came around, and they had such things as the WPA and the CCC, put people to work. I don't know why I'm shaking, but don't worry about it, I'm okay. I went to a technical high school and I graduated in 1942. On September 7th, when Pearl Harbor came, I was in a theater with 3 or 4 buddies, and we came out in the streets of Waterbury. And they were all, everything was going on, but they weren't celebrating, but most of us didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. That's how it was. And I wanted to enlist with my folks and other people, so finish high school. So I finished high school, but before, in February of '42, I took the cadet exam for aviation pilot. I flunked it, because that was the first year that they allowed high school kids to do it. Before that, you had to have college. I didn't know any of the military questions, so that's what did it. So anyway, I enlisted and went in September of 1942. Went up to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, a very big introduction camp. Only there a few days. And they sent me for basic training. And if you were a World War II veteran, you'd laugh about this. We went to Atlantic City for our basic training. We lived in hotels. I lived in a Ritz-Carlton, and then had my meals in the Ambassador, right on the boardwalk. And The bad part of the Ritz-Carlton was I lived on the 6th floor. So if you were on the 6th floor, you walked all the floors. From the ones above, you got to ride the elevator. Time went pretty quick there, and I was selected to go to radio operator school in Scottsfield, Illinois. Was not my choice, but they lined us up in the hotel, gave us a number 1 to 5, and I was number 3, and that was radio school. So that was it. That was the benefit of enlisting. If you were drafted, you didn't get any choice. But we all did the same job, enlisting or drafted. The time at Scottsfield was long. It was about 14, 16 weeks, I'm not sure exactly. But you were taking Morse code about 4 hours a day and typing it, and it was monotonous. The only thing that you did other things. You had physical education, and you learned a lot about the military. I passed the exam to be able to fly, and they needed gunners, so I got graduated 2 weeks earlier and went to gunnery school. And that was in Fort Myers, Florida. And it was, we got a good gunnery training there. We fired and learned to disassemble 50 machine guns. The fun part was we used to shoot skeet. I'd never fired a rifle or a shotgun in the first day or so. I had black and blue shoulders, but I was pretty good at it. And some of those skeet shoots we were in the back of a half truck and firing off of that wherever the target. It was good training for lead. My first trip in the air was we would go up in an AT-6, that's a training plane, and I had a pilot that was back there. He had been in China, Burma area. He was a staff sergeant, and he wasn't an officer. He was back there to get his officers, and so I had a good pilot. We got up, I fired my rounds. We fired them at a sleeve. The ammunition was painted on the end, so it went through the sleeve. You know who scored. And after we fired him, he checked with me, is your seatbelt on? Yeah. And he indicated he's going to do some maneuvers. The landing gear wouldn't come down, so he was going to shake it down. It didn't work. So we came in and without the landing gear, and we landed on a grass area that they kind of foamed down, and we walked away. In about 2 hours, the way they gave you post-stress in those days was they sent you back up. I was up in about two hours. Time went pretty fast there, and while I was there, I took the aviation cadet exam again. This time I passed it. However, the paperwork didn't catch up. So I was sent to Boise, Idaho to be on a crew. And we went by train. The train was wicker seats and gas lights and that type of thing. We were so dirty when we went through Las Vegas, they wouldn't even let us off the train. But I got to Boise, Idaho, was assigned to a B-24 as a radio operator. And we started our overseas training there. And after a few weeks, my appointment came. So when the crew was about ready to go to England, so I was taken off, and I waited about 2 more weeks, and they sent me back to boot camp in Kearns, Utah. Now this is a place that's out in the boonies, and I was a sergeant, and the guys that were drilling me were PFCs. So for a couple of days they had fun with me, but finally they found out I could do more than they could do, and it worked out fine. They sent me to Arizona State College for more training. It was about 4 months, went pretty fast. Didn't do any flying, only in a Piper Cub there, and that was it. Then I was transferred up to Oxnard. No, I went to Santa Ana first for a couple of weeks, and then to Oxnard, California. And I took my primary training there. Now, if you've seen the old biplanes, the Stearman, you still see them stunning programs. But that's what I was assigned to. I soloed in 4 hours. Today they wouldn't even let you touch anything in 4 hours. But I had a civilian crop duster pilot, and he took a liking to me, so he says, "You're ready." So in 4 hours. We didn't have a radio. We had a compass, altimeter, and fuel gauge, and the rest was your eyes. And they gave you a watch to keep timing. I got through that pretty well. In fact, I graduated in one of the top ones. I had no accidents. Those were low-built planes, and a lot of guys dragged the wings once in a while, but I didn't have anything. I was sent to Taft, California for basic flying. I got there, I got a few hours in the Vultee vibrator, and when they call it a vibrator because that's what it actually did when you put it in a dive, you could hear everything rattle and shake. But the Air Force had planned 30,000 too many pilot trainees. So I was washed out, and if I had been a cadet, I would have went to bombardier school or navigator school, then became an officer. But because I was a radio operator, they gave me quick papers to ship overseas. They gave me a 9-day delay allowed to Connecticut and back to Kansas. The only good thing about it is I met the girl I married on that 9 days. That was a good thing. I got on a crew. We had a great crew, and we were sent to Bayou, Texas. Went through the full thing. Sent back to Kearney, Nebraska to go overseas. They shipped us by train to Newport News. And then we took a ship. Now, the Liberty ship was about the slowest ship made, but they made many of them. And that's what we were assigned to. So we're in a 150 ship convoy, and we were the slowest. So it took 28 days to go to Italy. I got to Naples. They transferred to a place called Foggia, and it was a big air base, Italian air base. Our outfit had bombed it from North Africa and finally took it over. When I reported there, they said, "Well, Aitchison, you're the new radar jammer." And I said, "What the heck is that?" And they said, "Oh, we'll train you." So I had about 2 hours of quick training. And what I was supposed to do was they gave me extra transmitters and receivers, and you pick up the sound of the German radar and you transmit it on the same frequency. The bad part was you flew tail end Charlie of the formation. And the formations had 4 groups of 7 planes. It was 28 planes. My first mission, it was a nothing. It was more or less, we made a mission, we dropped some bombs, I think it was in Bologna, and then we were back. My second mission, we went to Bleckhammer, Germany. It was quite a long flight. I'm not sure, but it was probably six hours up. And we bombed. It was a special factory, and I'm not sure what it was. I think it was ball bearing or something. Anyway, we bombed it, and over the target, we got hit. One engine was hit bad, and the prop was spinning around, and they couldn't feather it. And the other engine was kind of sputtering. So we were told, get ready to bail out. But hold on. Well, my engineer fortunately was able to feather that prop, so we got 2 inches going, and we headed back for Italy. We got to Yugoslavia, we had thrown out everything, guns, everything that was loose, just to keep up in the air. And we got to Yugoslavia, and we decided they were gonna land on a little island of Vis, very small island, maybe 20 miles long or something. But the partisans were there. That was General Tito's partisan, and they were on our side. The Germans were 20 miles off on the coast. We didn't crash land, we landed, but they put parachutes out the window to slow us down, and we were okay. So my crew went over to check the radio station. There was 2 British guys, and they left my engineer and I had to take care of the plane. Well, the partisans came with their Tommy guns, and they started stripping the plane. Well, what could we do? We didn't even carry a sidearm. So I made friends with one of them, had a little wine, and when the pilot got back, he gave us heck, and I said, what are we gonna do? So it was a funny experience. But one of them gave me a little red star, because they were communists, and without thinking, I put it in my flight suit. And that was all. I didn't think about it anymore. They flew in a couple days later, and that tail, one of the guys, they didn't even stop their engine on the old DC-3, and he counted 250 holes in the tail, and whatever we had otherwise, but that was it. But we all came out okay on it, and they sent in about 2 days later. Meantime, we were listed as missing in action. My folks got a quick notice, he's missing. We don't know any more than that, and we'll inform them. So after 2 days, they flew in and got us back. And in a couple of days, I'm flying again. The way it was in Italy, we lived in a tent, and you had a bunk with a blanket and a few things there, and when you got shot down, that all disappeared. But we got it all back, and I continued on, and we made 14 and a half more missions, and they were big targets. Munich, I never went to Berlin, but we went to Munich, Vienna, Luckheimer, Regensburg, all big targets. But we got back all of these times. We finally was to be our 17th mission, and when we completed that, we would go for a week at the Isle of Capri for rehab. So we were looking forward to that. Well, it was supposed to be a milk run. In other words, you just took off and you're not going to have any problem. Well, that wasn't the case. We dropped our bombs, but not everybody did. So the colonel says, well, we didn't have any problem. Let's do a 360. And on the circle around the second time, they knocked down 7 our planes, ours being one. We had to bail out immediately. Ours was on fire. The tail gunners was back there seeing the flames. He didn't ask for any. He came back and jumped. The rest of us jumped, and we made it, got out. We saw the plane blow up before we got down. So we were pretty lucky to get out of it. I landed in a tree, my chute was hung up. I got cut up a little, but it looked worse than it was. It was mostly scratches and stuff. But I got knocked out, and I don't know how long that was. It was pretty short, I believe. But in the meantime, they could see my chute, so I was able to lower myself to the ground and take off. But a young Hungarian had a dog, and he spotted me. I was buried in leaves, but he came, so I got up with my hands up. He was as scared as I was. But a German sergeant came, and he could speak a little English, and he laughed. He says, Well, the war's coming to the end, because I look so young. He says they're using kinder, which was kids. And he treated me decent. I got a ride on an ox cart down out of the Alp Mountains into a little city. I got searched by the Gestapo. They weren't too bad to me. A little embarrassing, they strip searched you and so forth, but they didn't abuse me any other way. I got shown into a cell, very small cell, had 2 wooden bunks in it with nothing on. And during the night, the door opened to the cell and somebody else came in. Didn't know who it was, and neither one of us talked. When they opened the door in the morning, it turned out to be my engineer. And of course, that was quite a reunion then. And from that forth, we were like brothers that day forth. We were taken to a German air base, Graz, Austria. That's where our former governor came from. And we were at that air base, and we were held right in with the German prisoners in a different cell, but in the same quarters. We were there a while, and
Here. That way you can, probably won't fit.
now let's,
Is it not?
that's all right.
It's too,
Thank you.
It's
Thanks, Dan.
That's
too small for him.
okay.
I was gonna do that, I didn't think it was.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's, well, we were at Graz, then we got shipped up to a place called Luft that's up near Frankfurt, Germany. On our way up, we stopped in Vienna, and we were underneath the railroad station when the British bombed. And they don't bomb by precision. They drop big bombs. And we could hear them, but it didn't hit that railroad station. And when I got out of there, we had to go across a train or a trolley to another station. And when we're getting on the trolley, this woman hands me her baby. And the guard goes crazy. And but nothing happened. And we went to the other station, ended up in Luft. They clothed us there. They had thousands of us. Just about everybody that was captured as an airman went there. And they interrogated. My interrogation was pretty easy. I gave name, rank, and serial number and got away with it. But the German officer spoke perfect English. He had been an officer on Holland shipping line. And so he took a book out on me. And he told me where I went to high school, most of the units that I've been with. He didn't know one when I went to Arizona State. It was ASSU or something, and they didn't know what that was. So, but other than that, I got through it. My engineer came out and he says, "What the hell did you tell them?" And I said, "I didn't tell them anything." He said, "They knew what high school I went to." So his was the same. It was pretty, they got that from newspaper clippings and whatever back here. It was how their spying system worked. And there was no computers in those days.
You weren't on
So-
Facebook, Archie?
What's that?
You weren't on Facebook? No internet?
Not-
So
But I mean-
Archie, they knew all that information on you before you even said anything.
Yeah, once they got my name up, they knew what was going on.
That's scary.
We were then shipped by civilian train, and there was 2 of us, and we rode in a regular civilian car, and 2 women were in it, our 2 guards, and on the way there, my engineer was always looking to do something, so one of the women came in with a bag of apples, and he helped her up to put it up in the rack. And the first tunnel we came to, I had apples in my lap. So we had a trip across Germany. We stopped in one city, and it was like German Red Cross, and they weren't going to do anything. And when German sergeants got us something to eat and a piece of white bread or something. But anyway, it went on, and we got to Stalag Luft 4. That's up in Prussia, up near the Baltics, up there in real cold. Yeah. So the camp had over 10,000 American GIs, no officers, only air. Most of us were sergeants or so forth. I was a staff, and it was British there also. We got a little bit of Red Cross package. We got some hot water in the morning and some imitation coffee. They call it ersatz. But with the hot water, you could drink it. Quite often we get something like a cereal, small amount, but we got something. And so, usually at noon, we'd get some soup, watery soup, whatever. One thing that happened one day is one of the fellows was Jewish, and there was a little bit of pork in it. And we said, Hal, what are you going to do about that? He said, let me look. Oh, such good veal. So that was it. We got through in February 4th. In 1945, the Russians were getting very close, so they evacuated the camp. 45 of us started out walking, and we were told it would be 3 or 4 days, and then we would be somewhere else. Well, that 3 or 4 days turned out to be 86 days. And I was liberated on my 80th. They put us up at barns at night, which was scary because they're full of hay, and most of the GIs smoked, so just trying to keep them from not smoking was scary. But we got through it, but you know, you had to go to the bathroom and forget it because you have to get to the guard and let you outside. By that time it's too late, so we're a filthy mess. But we went through mostly around cities. If we were near a city, the German youth would throw stones at us and things. But we just kept going. A few guys dropped by the side. Usually they were put on one of the horse-drawn wagons and taken somewhere. We never knew how they made it or not. My engineer did escape for a few days, and but they caught him. He hid out in the barn and figured, well, the Russians will be here in a day or two. Didn't happen. Somebody turned him in, and he lucked out. He got a full Red Cross package, and we didn't get any. But it was just the luck of the day. But we, one of the worst parts of the trip was 3 days we were in a boxcar. And they're small boxcars over there. They call it 40 and 8. They were built for 8 horses and 40 men. They crammed us in. We couldn't lay down. We just could squat. And no facilities. And we were 3 days. And it was pretty bad. But the Americans were bombing someplace real close. So they got us out of the train and we're in a ditch. Didn't get hit. We talked the guards into not taking the train anymore to walk. And so we continued. And we were near bombings, but never got hit. When they transported us in that train, they had big POW written right in the back of the engine. But we weren't fortunate, we weren't. But there were guys that were strafed by our own people. And but we survived it, and we got to the Elbe River, and where the Russians and Americans came together near a town of Bitterfield. We were on the Russian side, and the little town surrendered to us, well, to the Russians, but we were let go too. And they sent one MP across. We were about 20 miles away, and with a detector, he led us through the minefields that were there, and we got back to where General Patton's troops were. We got interviewed, they fed us, they apologized because it was K-rations. Well, that was like cake. And, then they had a mess hall that the German one day took over, and they were warning us there's not a lot of food. We're front line, they haven't caught up. But the guards were the ones that served us, so when we got up in front of them, we'd say "Kafagan" and pour one on. Well, it wasn't good because our stomachs wouldn't take it. But we survived a few days there, and then they flew us to France. I'm not sure which city was which, but Nancy and Epinal. And one of them we went, they just transferred us to the other, and that they sent us to a hospital. We got there at night, we woke up in the morning, there was a lot of GIs in bad shape, some without legs and arms. Him and I are still walking, so we call it an escape. We hitchhiked like motor American vehicles up to La Havre, France, and there was thousands of us there. And then once we were there, one of the things that happened, I didn't have a love for the Red Cross for a while because they had a coffee stand with donuts, and but you had to pay for it. We had no money. So, but the Salvation Army down the road had it, and we were taken care of. And I heard later that they were, some of the GIs just turned their American Red Cross tables over and let them feel it. But anyway, we were there in La Havre, and we were there a long time, and we were getting pretty noisy because there's thousands of us. There was also a lot of GIs had enough points to get home and get out, and they're waiting. So Eisenhower came there and promised us to double load the ships, and that would speed it up. So we got on a hospital ship, and we got the bunks first. And after the 12 hours, 2 Marines came down and says, "Okay, time to move." Nobody moved. "Come on, it's orders." Nobody moved. So they gave up. About a day later, we shared the bunks with the guys who were up above. But we were of an attitude, we weren't going to listen to anything. But anyway, it took about 10 days. We came back, Newport News, landed there. A little briefing, supposedly physical, with nothing. We were breathing and walking, so they decided to give us 60-day furloughs because they didn't know what to do with all of these guys. And I got a 60-day furlough, went back to Connecticut. I was there when the war in Japan ended. It was in August, and I was in uniform there. I could have been drunk in about 10 minutes because there was so much celebration going on. But I went back, and my point system still hadn't caught up. I got some money, I was paid money, and I got some ration tickets for gas, 4 gallons, I think. I had no car, so a friend of mine got it. But got back, and they assigned me to a place in Long Island, a small air base to train pilots. And so I got there, but I had got the clerk there to list me as a clerk, non-typist. Now I'm a staff sergeant, and no, they had gave me my rank, tech sergeant, but they didn't make it retroactive, and we didn't get flying pay because we weren't flying. So they beat us out of that. But I got to the base, and like I say, we didn't care what we did too much. So I reported on a Friday, and I asked for a 3-day pass. Says, you just got here. I said, yeah, it's Friday. What are you going to do with me over the weekend? So I talked them into it. I got a 3-day pass. And my wife-to-be had been visiting Atlantic City. Her brother lived in Camden, which is nearby. And so I saw her a little bit. And I beat her home. And her mother says, Archie's here looking for you. Can't be. But anyway, that's how I got back. I stayed there. First day I reported they said, go to the armament shop. We don't have no clerk on Titans here. And there's a tech sergeant in charge, and he's pretty happy, because I said, what are you happy about? He says, you're my replacement. You're now chief armor. Well, I didn't know a damn thing about what they were doing. I knew 50 caliber machine gun. But he says to me, he says, there's 2 PFCs here. They know everything. Take care of them and you're all set. So I did that, which he had done. They were smart, but they always would get a rank and then get busted again. But, so I got through that, and finally my points came through, and they said anybody a prisoner without my points, 30 days or more, could get discharged. So I was sent up to Edwards in Massachusetts and discharged. So that's a short story of what happened. There's many other little details I could tell, but that's basically it. But
So
if
Archie,
you,
when was the end of the war with Europe in relative to your?
it ended May 7th. So-called ended, but we could still hear guns. But I was liberated on the 26th, but we still hear the guns and so forth. And technically, World War II didn't end until 1946. So we had some guys that were in World War II technically, but never served over there. Or if they did, it was, the war was over. Many went for occupation troops. But
And how long were you a prisoner, Archie?
it was 6 months, but 80 days were marching. And the camp wasn't bad, and the others, you know, they weren't pleasant, but we were covered with lice. I had dysentery, probably 90 days or so, most of the march, urinary problems. I never got any beatings. I got a couple rifle butts in the butt, but nothing new. It's just,
Frauds.
yeah, keep going, you know. But I'm a very lucky person. I got through everything. I don't know. One of the missions, I don't know if I told you about this part. Did I mention that we had to kick bombs out? I don't think so. Well, we were on a mission and we dropped our bombs, but all of the other planes didn't. Some of them did some. So they decided to make it 360. And that's when my engineer and I had to go up and kick the bombs out because they got hung up. And I met him at a reunion with my wife years later, and he's recalling, he says, Archie's eyes were as big as saucers. And I said, so were yours. But, and the other thing is my oxygen got shot out while I just passed out at the radio seat. But one of my armor gunners spotted me, came up, my fingers were turning blue, but he slapped the oxygen on me and I was okay. And that was my worst experience.
What altitude were you generally when you were bombing?
Well, the day we got shot down, we were low. That was 18,000. But we usually flew with 30,000, and it's 55 degrees below.
Oh, wow.
We wore a silk glove under our regular glove. So if we had to take off the glove and touch metal, it wouldn't stick to it. We wore a throat mic, a heated suit that looked like long underwear with shoes or slippers on it, and it had wires. It was adequate, it kept us warm enough. You had to wear oxygen from 10,000 on up. So once we reached 10,000, we would put them on. My engineer and I were pretty good at maintaining higher. We would stay to maybe 15,000 and help ourselves to the K rations before we hit the high altitude. And but you did crazy things, and I don't know how we won the war. But
Did you ever make any ice cream at that high elevation?
no, no.
I heard stories that back in World War II, the pilots would take up the ingredients, and because it was so high up, it would freeze, and they could make ice cream up it.
No, I didn't know of them doing that, but I know what they did one time. They went down to North Africa and got a load of beer, but they flew too high and it all frozen. But,
Thank you.
but everybody had a different story because every day was different for each prisoner. And my engineer, he passed away a couple years ago. He was the old man on our crew. He was 24, and I was 20. And I think the pilot was 24 also. When they got back to Italy, the 6 of them, 5 of them flew again. But the pilot didn't fly. He was grounded, and he probably had post-stress at that. He had been on the mission that I got shot down with before, and so they made him a ground job, and he was still in Italy when we were all back home. And unfortunately, he died at a young age in his 40s, and I never got to see him again. I talked to him and his wife. They were in Pennsylvania. One crew member is still alive that I know of, is in Florida. He's my co-pilot, and we usually call one another on the day that we were shot down. I don't call him the day I got liberated because he wasn't there.
Yeah. Was he not
But he'll
captured?
call me. That's
Archie, was he not captured with you at the same time?
what happened. Is the ones in back, there was 4 of us in back, not counting the tail gunner. Well, the 4 of us that got out last there were the ones that were, 3 of us in back. Tail gunner got away, but he went early. And my engineer was in front, and he was the last one out there, and I was the last one out, and we were captured. And the other 6 got picked up with the partisans. And it took them 38 days to get back to Italy. And not under good conditions, but they were well enough that they completed their missions. And
So your entire crew survived that crash?
yes, everybody survived it.
And when the engineer, when you found out it was your engineer in there, was he in the same plane or was he in a different plane?
No, there's 10 of us in a plane. And I heard later from a radio operator that was in a plane flying next to me. And I was home and out of the service. And he called and said who he was. And he says, I saw you the day you went down. And they reported so many shoots, but that's all they knew. But he had reported more, and he turned out to be the more correct, more of them. And I don't know how many got killed or not. I don't really know. There's no figures I've ever seen.
Do you know how many still are around now from
Well,
World War II? Are there? Do you
I'm
think?
commander of the XPOWs for Inland Empire. Our last meeting had 4 and a liberator. And this liberator was a tank commander for Patton. And he liberated Stalag 3, I believe it was. His tanks cut off the German tanks which was surprising because they were not as good as the Germans and as big. But they cut them off and they went in and liberated that camp. And so he has always been active with them. We call him the Liberator. Yeah. That's my son up.
Okay.
So, I lost my train.
Did you go to Washington DC with all the veterans?
I've been there on my own, and I was offered twice to go on the honor flight, but I had been to Washington DC, and I said give it to somebody else. I was not impressed by the Washington DC monument. It took 60 years, and it doesn't say a damn thing about World War II, really. There's a bunch of statues of each state and so forth, and it's a beautiful, but if you go to the Korean one, you'll see a story. In the Vietnam one, you just have to look at the wall, and that's enough, but it's still going on. They're taking World War II guys back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Archie, what was your, what kept you going each day? Was it spiritual? Was it, what in your mind kept you going
Well,
each day?
Yeah, spiritual. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God, but I grew up a Christian, and I don't say I practiced. I was always a churchgoer, but I think it got me through. And my engineer felt the same way, and he was a Texan who was crazy, but I visited him in Yoakum, Texas for a reunion, and one of our last one. We met in Sweetport, Louisiana, and went to Yoakum, and that's west of Houston in the boonies, a little town, and everybody knew him, Mr. Waits, who was known as. But he was well known in his church, and he had made a couple of hole-in-ones, so he was well known. Yeah.
Celebrity, huh?
What's that?
He was a celebrity in
Yeah.
town.
He got out and went back in and actually flew in Korea.
No.
And he was an engineer for one of the B-29s, I guess, then. And he got through it. He tried to talk me into going, no way. It's funny, two of the American Air aces, one was Colonel Zemke, and he was, I think, the leading air ace, and Gobreski was another one. They both got shot down. And I didn't find out about Zemke till a few days ago, where I read about him. He didn't get shot down. He crash landed.
Oh.
His wingman said no, he didn't get shot down. And he followed him down, and something happened. And he got captured. He lived through it. And in Dulag Luft, he was like the head king. You know, they treated him pretty good. But he was influential in how they treated us, too. But Gobreski got liberated, and right away he announced, send me over to Japan, I'm ready. Well, that wasn't what most of us were thinking.
Yeah.
But he wasn't popular by that, but he was a hero, too. And
Archie, have you been back to Prussia, to the Stalag? I mean, did you
no,
ever
I
meet
never
any
went
of your-
there. I
in
went.
later life, did you ever meet any of your captors, any of the German officers?
No, nothing there. I did go back in '78 with my wife. My son had been an exchange student there for a summer. So we went to visit the family, and the woman spoke perfect English. And the husband, when I get there, had passed away. But he didn't speak English. But my son made out pretty good with him. He was ahead of the wine testing for that area. My son was 16 when he used to go around with him. And he got a good education for that summer. So I went back and I visited one time, was well received, and she came and visited us 5 times. And it was, each one was pleasant. And I made friends with her neighbors, even though I didn't know much German and they didn't know much English. One day I was spending with a neighbor about an hour, and she said, "Where were you?" I'm talking with your neighbors. She had a hearty laugh. Well, she can't be talking with them, you don't speak. I told her more about her neighbor than she knew, I think. But that's little things. It's, you know, there's a lot of things. I don't remember many of the days on the march. They're gone.
That's okay.
Valentine's Day was the one that I remember. Any other questions?
Archie, that's a great story.
Thank you.
Want to look up that YouTube at your home? You look up Unsung Heroes, Archie, YouTube. That's it. And it should come up if you have a computer or your phone on some.
Yeah, it's the first one that comes up if you do that. Unsung Heroes, Archie, YouTube.
Ron was trying it, and he was doing YouTube first, and he couldn't get it.
Yeah, and I tried downloading it and I couldn't. And Wyatt here is the one that produced the video, and I wish I could have talked to him before and tried to get it. I thought I could download it onto a disc and couldn't do it. But it's interesting, and if
It's
you
about a
want to know more, hear
45-minute
more about
talk. Oh, okay. Good.
I would like everyone to stand over here where our banner is, and I want Archie there so we can get a picture, because I want to send it into Chia.
it. Oh, great.
Hello everyone, my name is Wyatt Roos, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what Patreon is and how you can help support my project. Patreon is a monthly private subscription where content is made just for you. Donating even $5 a month gives me the ability to document the true stories of the Second World War and its heroes. You get access to first-hand experiences of the war and what it was really like to be there. When you support this project, you're supporting Unsung Heroes directly to continue my mission. With your support, I'm able to spend more time on meaningful work that will have a positive impact. Join me on Patreon, and let's not let our heroes be forgotten. So come on this journey with me and experience the true stories of the Second World War and its heroes. Thank you very much for watching this video. I have to go get ready and do an interview with a Pearl Harbor survivor. And you know what? Why don't you come with me? So I always start off my interviews asking where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor, but you were actually there, weren't you?
Right.
Right, okay.
Right aboard the West Virginia.
So how did you not only survive Pearl Harbor and World War II, and then also you're what, 96?
97.
97. So how did you make it that long?
My faith and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Wow.
The power of the Holy Spirit is what guided me in everything I did and said.
Wow. Thank you for taking your time out with
You
me
bet.
today. I appreciate it.
You bet, Wyatt.
Follow me on these interviews that will take you to the past through the eyes of these amazing veterans. For full interviews and to donate to Unsung Heroes Project, please visit the link below. Your donations, likes, and shares, and social media support are greatly appreciated.
God, we don't know what our fate might be. We only ask that if die we must, we'll die as men would die, without complaining or pleading, safe in the feelings that we have done our best for what we know is right. Dear God, watch over us, our families, watch over us in the fire ahead, and with us now as we pray to you. Move out.